The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to the Keefer and Kurre Show right here on Tony Kurre Radio. You can hear this show at least 5 days a week. And, of course, wherever you get your favorite podcast. First of all, I want to thank Keefer to my left. It has been one hell of a 2024, and you are a big part of my success and certainly a lot of the things that are really turning into great things. The starting lineup on ABC 3340 has been a hoot. This has had a fantastic time during the football season. Little did we think that you and I could go an entire year, even when we're not doing college football. We pulled it off, and I hope we can do that again in 2025. Your Need to Know show is always pulling great numbers, and of course, this Keefer and Kurre show, which is just a great show. I love sitting there talking to you 30, 45 minutes every single week. But thank you so much for all you do, and it's just been a fantastic year. Now my fifth year. I can't believe it's been 5 years since I started this endeavor.
Amazing.
Started out as a little classic rock station with 700 songs. The next thing you know, it's like we got 19 different podcasts. We're working on 3 more for 2025, and it's just been it's been great. And ultimately, and I think I heard this on Need to Know. There's a lot to be said about doing what you want to do with your life. And sometimes you can get complacent. Sometimes you need to have a little bit of a fire under your ass. Sometimes you need to get a swift kick on the backside. But there's so many people out there that are just having to listen to the man or having to do it someone else's way, and they're just miserable. And at least in the situation, at least you and I are both in, we can kind of write our own stories, and that's pretty doggone exciting. It's a huge responsibility, but it's pretty doggone exciting to know that we can create whatever we want to do with our lives. And I don't take that lightly at all.
And I don't either. I absolutely am thrilled with that. And I have so much appreciation and gratitude that I'm in a position to do that. I just wonder, Tony, about impact. Is it making any kind of difference, or is this just me, taking up space and doing what I want to do, or is there any purpose to it?
Yes.
That's a deep question.
No, it is. And let me tell you this. When I first started doing this internet radio thing about 5 years ago, I didn't want to get back into terrestrial radio. The money wasn't there, and this is all I've done since I was 12 years old. Okay, I worked at Kentucky Fried Chicken. I worked in a music park, but this is what I really love to do. This is what I've been doing. I've been doing it for over 40 years. And so it was the first time it was the first time I'd ever been fired. And I'm sitting there in my young 50s trying to go, okay, what am I going to do next? Because I've never worked a 9 to 5. It's not to say I wouldn't drive a bus. I wouldn't do whatever it took to provide for my family. And I was willing to do that.
Well, of course.
But I also, I don't say that I took it for granted, and I'm not saying that I was spoiled because it was a job that I created, something that I chose to do, and I did really well at it. I had a hell of a great run. So at that point in time, I had to realize, and I feel you, because it wasn't too long ago where I'd be on stage in front of 20,000 people 3 times a week, or whenever I opened my mouth and I was on Jocks, we had 60,000 people. I knew that I was making an impact wherever I went, and so doing what you're doing with yourself, with all the television and radio stations and stuff like that. And I think doing the television for an extended period of time has really helped you there, because you've kind of bopped around a little bit. And I told you, man, I said, if you could just really do one thing and just do it really, really well, I think it really can turn into something. And I think the TV show has done that. But I can't worry about who I impact. I have to worry about how I impact. And what I mean by that is it doesn't really matter how many people you're impacting. It's who you're impacting and how you're impacting those people. And that's the most important thing, because if I'm doing a radio show and I get 60,000 people listening to it one day, and it was a great show, and people are like, that's a wonderful show, I love that show, and they tell their friends, or I've got 5 people listening the next day, but I've saved someone's life. What's more important? And that's it's so much more now quality over quantity for me. That I know that I'm making an impact, and all it takes is one person. It was so funny. I was walking my dog yesterday, yesterday morning at around 8:30. And I was out in the River Chase area, and there's a little track out there, and I was going to walk about 5 or 6 miles. And a guy come flying down the road with his windows down, and there's Kip Keefer just railing on something, and your voice is so distinctive, and I knew it was you, and I was like, it was 8:15 in the morning, and I could hear you talking on the radio, and I was thinking to myself, man, that was me every Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock. Man, you could not turn a radio on in this town at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, not hear me wailing, doing some classic rock, doing Zeppelin, doing AC/DC stuff. And it's just it's a different time for both of us now. We're different men than we were. And I'm just excited to still be doing what I love to do. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Screw it. Fuck it. As long as I'm doing what I want to do and I'm having a good time with it and people enjoy it, then that's what I'm going to do. Sometimes it's going to be 100,000 people. Sometimes it may be someone at church. It may be 2 or 3. But I know that I'm making an impact. I know you're making an impact. Just based on the people that are around you. I mean, you're dropping stories last week about, friends that know Donald Trump and everything else. You're making a huge impact. So you have to believe that and just ride with it and just know that you're going to do something you love to do. What a blessing.
Well, I appreciate the therapy because you were mentioning the show Sunday. It's a funny business because we got on first thing Sunday morning to preview it was the morning after the championship games to preview the upcoming selection show that was going to come on right after we went off the air. Tony, for 2 hours, there's 7 phone lines and jocks. From the time we logged on in the morning to the time we let off, all 7 lit up continuously. It was unbelievable. It's a Sunday morning talk show. Yep. It's unbelievable. And, the first 20 minutes or so afterwards, I was euphoric. And then I started having what difference does it make kind of thing? I don't know. I'm just looking for validation and for just some kind of, I have too many idle hours just to sit around and think about those kind of things. I need to even be busier than I am now. That's probably the only prescription that's going to work for me.
Well, you just have to be comfortable with who you are, and
which I need to work. I need to work on that.
And you need to sit back and I mean, and you know this, but you should wake up every morning and do a gratitude list and just write down all the things that you're grateful for. And it starts with your 2 kids. And just how wonderful they are and the jobs that the fact that they're doing kind of what their old man did, I think is something that from a legacy standpoint,
that's pretty cool.
This should be very, very important to you because I don't think either one of your kids would be doing what they're doing if it wasn't for their dad.
No.
And so, yeah, it's just like, and again, maybe you're going through a part of your time where, we're on the backside now. Let's be honest,
Yeah, definitely.
I hope to get 30 more years. I hope I can make it to 90. But those questions start to come into your brain a little bit, like what am I going to be remembered for, or what's going to be my legacy here? What am I going to be remembered for? And for the most part, I think I always remembered thinking to myself, 10, 15 years ago, all I cared about was being a good father. That's all I could think about was like, I want to be a great father, mm-hmm. and then once you think you're doing a pretty good job of being a father, then you start thinking, okay, what else is there? And sometimes that's what it is. You're making an impact in people's lives. And it doesn't matter whether it's 100 people or one person. Certainly that one person, can make a whole, but you just have to, you're doing what you love to do. You keep pushing forward and then you just sit there, wait, because in God's hands and he's going to give you what he needs anyway. So my life's been full of surprises, man. I mean, from going to ESPN to doing I wouldn't have fathomed in a million years of my life would have been what it is. So I can't question it now. I'm just going to keep pushing forward and keep doing what I'm doing and just waiting for the next big surprise. So it's all good. Hey,
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, enough of the Kip Keefer therapy hour. I'm sorry I hijacked the program here, but because you had a theme today for Keefer and Kurre, and we've got gone off the path here, and I apologize.
No, that's good. So I found a list, and I think everyone. Yeah, we love lists. So I like to go back and see if we got it right. So I found an article here from Front Office Sports. The biggest stories we'll be talking about in 2024.
Interesting.
And let's see if they nailed it right. The 2023-24 bowl season did not disappoint from semifinal Rose Bowl decided in overtime and emotional goodbye for Oregon quarterback Bo Nix. the details of an expanded college football playoff. We'll be talking about that. I would probably say that was probably one of the number one things.
Yeah.
And by the way, I didn't get not your thoughts. I said on our show, K4 wins, that Bama was in. I just based on the numbers and the way they went from a plus 105 to a minus 260 or 270.
Yep.
And your son was talking about, wow, that number is way too big to be betting on Bama to make the playoffs. I was shocked. I was shocked that they didn't get into the playoffs. I'm still shocked that they didn't get into playoffs. I don't know what the playoff committee is trying to tell us. Nick Saban coming out and saying, you know what, maybe we need to start playing more cream puffs. Maybe we need to start playing 10 conference games, because if I'm out there playing non-conference games that I thought what the fans really wanted, and we're 3-1 against the top 25 and SMU's 0-2 and we don't make it in, they're telling us something.
Tony, if Army doesn't schedule Notre Dame this year and they play Lehigh instead, they're 12-0. They're in the playoffs.
They're in the playoffs. You're right.
I mean, it's insane, but this is the business of football is taking over here, because Greg Sankey, if you listen to him defending the conference championship games, this was all about making sure that these cash cows, these conference championship games, which really don't fit in an expanded playoff universe. Not anymore. In the NFL, when you clinch a playoff spot, you don't have to beat somebody in a championship game as an additional game for revenue. You're in the playoffs. Yep. In college football, Alabama was in the playoffs before the doomsday scenario, and I kept being the voice of reason, saying there's one scenario that's going to screw Alabama here, and it's SMU losing to Clemson, and everybody's going to say, well, they're so deserving. They had the 64th toughest schedule. Alabama had the 15th. Alabama's loss to Oklahoma was absolutely catastrophic.
And that's all. And I kept saying, listen, they didn't take care of business. I'm not ballyhooing here. I'm not complaining, but they and you know, if they lost by 3 in that game, they may have had a better shot of getting in, but they just laid a huge egg in that game. Continue.
But that decision by the committee was to protect the sanctity of conference championships, because now it's going to say, well, it does matter if you go there, even if you lose. But isn't like they lost to Oregon. Clemson was 17th ranked in the college football playoff rankings. They lost to the 17th best team in the country and still get in. They lost the game, Tony. I don't care how gallant they were. They got behind 14-0 right off the bat. This is an abominable decision by the committee, and it's again to protect the business of college football, not to reward the most deserving teams.
We never thought in a million years that a 3-loss team would get in, and that one 3-loss team is the Clemson Tigers.
Unbelievable.
3 weeks
because
ago,
they get automatically in.
My son, they automatically get in. My son goes to college there, and 3 weeks ago he's like, Dad, Pittsburgh's got to lose 2 of the next 3 games. Miami's got to lose It's never going to happen. I said, son, you've watched enough college football, you know what's going to happen. And there it is. And they lose to South Carolina, which they possibly couldn't do. And
thought they were done.
They backed their ass in and almost lost to SMU, which was a great ball game, by the way, in the ACC. And then the other 3-loss team, of course, was Alabama. So we that's not precedent anymore. We can sit there and say, yes, a 3-loss team has gotten in. No, I don't think there'll ever be a 4-loss team getting in. Unless, of course, you're talking like the old Pac-12 days where one side's, 7-4, they make it into their conference championship.
Well, your point was right on K4 on Friday that we didn't think a 3-loss team could get in. Well, a 3-loss team got in, but they got in automatically. They still didn't put a 3-loss team in. Your premise was right, and our premise was right that wasn't going to happen, and it didn't at the end of the day.
It's going to be great. But I will say this, man, it's like college football's a second season. I'm super excited about it. I mean, I love bowl games. But these matchups are fantastic, and it's going to be so much fun to have 3 or 4 more weeks of great college football.
Tennessee at Ohio State, that's going to be pretty cool.
Oh, man.
Indiana and Notre Dame, they never, ever play in the same state. That's pretty awesome too. SMU, Penn State. I guess SMU needs to continue to show me, because I don't really see they're valid. But Clemson, you mentioned, will be at Austin against the Longhorns in the first round in a couple of weeks.
I would not want to play that game. That's for sure. Not against the Texas Longhorns. The future of professional golf. Again, these are things at the end of 2023. According to Front Office Sports, that we'll be talking about in 2024, professional golf still has a ton of questions to answer about its future. The PGA season begins in Maui. It did back in January. The Live Golf, backed by Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, tees off next month in Mexico. And of course, after this article was written, when was they actually got together and held hands and said, "Listen, let's do something together," and that went over like a turd in a punch bowl.
Yeah, the PGA sold out. They took the money and ran all the principles, all the things they were standing on, and it pissed some of the guys, the steadfast guys that stuck with the PGA off, that they just folded like a cheap
Roy
suit.
McIlroy got hung out to dry, brother.
I know it. I know it.
I mean, he really did.
I mean, so that was an interesting premise to start the year. I don't think they foresaw that the PGA, who was so principled and was not going to back down, as soon as those millions started flying around, okay, we're in.
It always comes down to the money.
Absolutely.
Speaking of money, it lost money like most of them do. Olympics, Paris 2024.
Ugh.
The organizers faced after months of turmoil and bad press, including local rioting, corruption allegations, budget concerns, and a dirty river. The heat was on for the French capital, and I think for the most part, they pulled it off. You know, we were getting done with the 2020 Olympic Games and the 2022 Beijing Games. Of course, those during the COVID years. But for the most part, I enjoyed it. It was good. I remembered it. I remembered it at the end of the year. You?
Yeah, I used to be a huge Olympics guy back in the day when it was the geopolitical situation was not so ridiculous. I don't know. I think the sports that of course, I've always liked the basketball and kind of the bigger name sports, the swimming competitions. I didn't watch it as much this time, probably as never before. But yeah, it still provides a great global competition, and I wish the global cooperation was better, because everybody's working for their same objective. So it kind of takes away. I don't think everything's set aside for those couple weeks like it should be, and that's what it was established way back in the ancient Greek days to do, was to suspend all the wars and the nonsense and just have some sheer competition.
Amen.
For and I think it's gotten away from that. I think it, like everything else, it's just been capitalized to the point where it's all about the money, and it's a shame.
This written in 2023, going into 2024, Las Vegas sports sustainability. Las Vegas, all about the glitz and glamour, and the city's looking to put on a major encore after its blockbuster 2023 last year included a pair of league titles for the WNBA Aces, NHL's Golden Knights, the debut of the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the arrival of MSAG Sphere, the inaugural NBA in-season tournament championship, and a deal for the Oakland A's to relocate to the Strip. Next up will be Super Bowl 48, which of course we already had at Allegiant Stadium in February, return for Formula One, and likely a repeat engagement of the IST. But serious questions remain. Will the A's ballpark deal stay on track amid a potential referendum challenge? And can the 40th largest media market in the U.S. truly handle all this sports growth? You're as close to it as anyone ever had.
I am right in the middle of it. In fact, I was there in October when they brought down the Tropicana Hotel. I was staying about a half mile up the Strip at the Venetian. The Tropicana was dynamited, brought to the ground. The referendum passed. The A's Stadium is now under construction. A dome stadium right on the Strip, right across the street, basically, from the properties down on that end, like Luxor and Mandalay Bay. It's going to be right there. The A's, Major League Baseball. Sports in Vegas. I mentioned it on K4 the other day, Tony. 2 weeks ago at the T-Mobile Arena, which is just behind New York, you had a little basketball encounter between Kansas and Duke at the exact same time. Directly across the street. I mean, and you don't even have to cross street. There's a skyway leading from New York, over to the MGM Grand. In the MGM Grand Garden across the street at the same time, you had Alabama playing in that game against Houston. These are two top 10 games going on directly across the street from each other at the same time. Name another place on earth that could happen other than Las Vegas.
No, it's amazing. I mean, it's incredible. And I, for the most part, I think, I don't know, I feel like I can go to Vegas and actually get in. I don't feel like I can do that. I just heard that AC/DC tickets went on sale on Friday, and before they even went on sale, the cheapest tickets were $1,200, and
Oh yeah.
I'm going. But I feel like if AC/DC played in Las Vegas, I could get in. I could figure out a way to get in. Maybe it's because there are so many great sporting events going on in Las Vegas that you can't possibly do all of them. All eyes on the very, very, very expensive Dodgers. And this one worked, huh? Because they won the World Series. Dodgers committed more than $1 billion to change all that, signing Shohei Ohtani, Yokomoto. They got him record-setting deals in 2024. The Dodgers will likely lead the league in attendance again, and Ohtani. And of course, Yamati will hit new levels of fame. Chavez Ravine. Team spending also reignites debate among fans and MLB team ownership over the merits of the salary cap. But if you spend that kind of money and you end up winning a World Series, it's okay, right?
Well, here's the thing. They just signed Blake Snell, the Cy Young Award winner from the Giants, $274 million contract. You ask yourself, where does it end? But I've done a lot of research on this, and they're kind of usurping the rules, because what they're doing is getting these players to agree to come to these mega situations, but they're taking a lot of that money that they pledged to these players like Ohtani. They're not paying him very much right now on the front end. They're backloading it to where he's going to get paid the rest of his life, basically, just unforeseen amounts of money. And they're investing it in like these long-term investment accounts, these hedge fund things. And I don't understand all the complexities of it, but they're actually investing it in such a way where he's going to get paid at the back end when he's done playing pretty much more than he's even getting now. Yep. And that's how they're kind of getting around, because there's no way, I don't care how much your attendance is, I don't care how many World Series is, you can't have a payroll where every single guy on the team's making $40 or $50 million a year. But they're gaming the system, and baseball's letting them get away with it.
What are they? We were talking about, what was it, Bobby Bonilla, who's still getting paid $1 million a year from a contract back in 1980. He signed a deal.
Yeah,
he gets $1 million a year, and he's like, I'm good with that. I mean, for the rest of his life. Yeah, I like to see teams spend big bucks and then not win championships, because I think it's a deterrent. In this particular case, it worked for the Dodgers. There's no reason not to think that maybe the Mets are going to be in the mix now if they've just signed Soto to an $8 trillion baseball deal, whatever the hell that was they signed early this morning. He's one guy, but I mean, I've seen this happen so many times where I've seen teams with the best pitcher and the best hitter, and they're not the best team in Major League Baseball. They're not.
That's right.
It takes so many utility guys and the rest of those guys. Finally, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion in October 2022. Since then, he's laid off 6,000 employees, changed the name to X, boosted dangerous conspiracy theories, allowed hate speech to flourish, and lost several major advertisers, all while sports have helped keep it relevant. Sports,
I
love affair with X.
Right? Okay. First of all, that report allowed hate speech. He's allowing free speech. That's what America, it's in the Constitution. The predecessors that had Twitter were not allowing any speech of anybody who had any disagreement with what they were espoused to be true. So that's a typical media account that he's allowing hate speech. Elon Musk is not censoring speech. It's a free speech area. He spent $44 billion or whatever. Somebody asked him if it was a good business investment lately. No. He laughed and said, good business, the worst business investment of all time. But if you believe in America and you believe in the First Amendment of free speech, it's the greatest investment of all time, because it gives you one outlet. Tony, I can tell you, and I'm opinionated, and I have certainly, take my stands. I'm not going to back down from my thoughts, but I am not a radical hate speech. I don't have any hatred in my body, not one cell for anyone. Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you how many times I was censored on the former Twitter, or they put some kind of stupid thing at the bottom, goes, this information is not verified. I was suspended for 2 weeks from Twitter in the previous administration. And you know what my transgression was? the two stupid women Republican senators who are trying to be big government deep swamp rats, Murkowski from Alaska and Collins from Maine, voted against some big legislation and really threw in with the Democrats that and it was a bad decision. And I called them Thelma and Louise after the Susan Sarandon characters. And I forgot who the other chick was in that movie. But, they drove off the cliff at the end of the movie when the police were chasing them. And I was suspended for 2 weeks, Tony, for calling them Thelma and Louise because I was advocating suicide.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean, that's how ridiculous it was. This is America, for God's sake. So, God bless Elon Musk. I know he's a different guy. He's now right in the middle of the Trump thing. It's going to be fascinating to see what kind of waves they make in Washington because every bureaucrat, every, bloated fat cat they have not gone back to work since COVID. The office buildings are empty. People are working in their pajama pants, collecting a check, not doing a damn thing. Your government contracts out, and you got me on I wasn't going to rant today on Need to Know.
Right,
but
baby, go.
Here I go. We contract out most of the work now. So all of these bureaus, agencies, departments, it is wasting your money, my money, everybody's money. We're paying a bunch of people to do absolutely nothing. And these guys have them scared to death because they're going up there to clean house. And it's going to be really interesting. You talk about the theme for 2025. How is this government going to look by the end of this year? Are they going to succeed or are they going to be rebuffed? I heard a commentator the other day say, well, they don't know what kind of fight they're going to be in from the Washington bureaucracy. And then in 2 sentences, he goes, and this nominee is railing against the deep state that doesn't even exist. Dude, this just in. The Washington bureaucracy is the deep state.
Every year at the beginning of a year, I'm gonna keep a little journal, right? And I'm gonna write down every single day because I know at the end of the year I won't possibly remember everything that happened in the year of sports or the year of music or the year of my life or the year of whatever. And I'm gonna write things down, and I never do it. And here we are, another year in the books, and I've got nothing to show for it. So real quick, right off the top of your head, what do you remember most about 2024 in the year of sports?
2024, the year in sports. I it's a tough one for me. I don't want to say this one because we just talked about it, but it became the mega payroll World Series, the Dodgers and the Yankees, and all the conventional media was so just giddy. It's Dodgers, Yankees. The only thing better could have been the Dodgers and Mets. The Yankees and Mets, which that would have been just dreadful. Yeah. I don't like the big market teams. I don't like that you have to buy championships. I don't like it in college football now. I don't like the fact that Ohio State spent $20 million on their team only to fall on their face against Michigan, which was quite amusing. I don't like the fact that we've gotten to the point where you can't determine success in sports now unless you go out and spend a bunch of money. But so that's why the stories of the more humble teams accomplishing something is always to me the most notable thing. And unfortunately, in 2024, there's not a lot of examples of that. But I always live hopeful that your Cincinnati Reds or maybe a run-of-the-mill team can rise up and have a dream season and slay the big dragons occasionally. I'm still a guy who roots for the underdogs.
I hear you. 2 things kind of stuck out to me. First of all, the Aaron Rodgers story, which I think is just absolutely hilarious because I've got friends of mine who are Jets fans, Jets, and all they were doing was just talking about Super Bowl or bust. And I'm thinking to myself, just be super careful. You're talking about a guy that's pushing 40 years of age. He gets banged up his first year, which I thought was hilarious.
Lasted 3 plays.
Lasted 3 plays. And once he comes into his second year. This is a guy, if you look at his last 6 or 7 years, they surrounded him with great players and great runners. He ran the ball 63% of the time. And this is not Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he can throw you off if you get across the line of scrimmage every way and get a free 5 once in a while. He can still flick the wrist. He's still an unbelievable quarterback. Don't get me wrong. But this is not a guy that's putting the ball up 40 times a game anymore. Maybe he should be
Yeah.
I mean, last week I checked, I think they were 3-9. They're
Well,
not
they
going
officially were
anywhere.
eliminated yesterday in the overtime loss to the
And so what do
Dolphins.
you do with him now? What do you do with Aaron Rodgers now? You gave the entire farm for this guy. So what do you do with him now? Do you
Yeah.
bring him back? I mean, I don't even know. I don't even know what football team Aaron Rodgers could go to where he would actually be a fit, unless it was a situation like Russell Wilson's doing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I think
Yep.
is brilliant. And that takes a hell of a great coach. Tell me Russell Wilson, look how bad he looked at Denver and how good he looks at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Coaching, coaching, coaching,
It
coaching, coaching.
is. It is.
And he wasn't put on his back to win these football games. Aaron Rodgers ain't going to win football games for anymore. He's not going to lose them, but he ain't going to win that many ball games. The other thing I think was just absolutely amazing, and it's the first thing that comes to my mind, Caitlin Clark. I think that story went on for much longer than I thought it would ever go on. She put the WNBA on the map. She put college basketball on the map. And I don't want to admit to it, because I don't like watching women's sports. I'd much rather watch two horrible guy teams play a football game than watch two wonderful girl basketball teams. I just don't. It's just not me. It doesn't look natural to me all the time. I don't keep up with it. So I actually know what's going on with men's sports, not so much as about women's sports, but what she did for the sport was miraculous.
And she's not celebrated within the sport.
No.
She's villainized because she doesn't fit the mold of what they want that league to be, and it's really ridiculous.
It really is. I mean, it's almost like it was a little like this when Tiger Woods came into the PGA. Little bit.
There was the resentment that
the older guys were like, "Oh, this younger," and then until they realized that he's bringing in a shitload of money.
Remember Fuzzy Zeller at the Masters? When he's and Fuzzy Zeller was not a controversial guy. He was trying to be funny, but he reflected the views of a lot of people. He said, this little boy's doing everything it takes to win, and hey, he's got a 7-stroke lead going to the last round. So just don't serve fried chicken and chitlins next year at the dinner. Okay. And he thought he was being funny, and he got vilified for it, deservingly so, because we are so dismissive as a society when somebody comes from a direction we don't expect. And Caitlin Clark does not fit the mold of what they want this to be, a league where, and this is not my number, and people's lifestyle, I don't care. But this is a league that supposedly different surveys and different things, it says it's about 70% lesbian, and it's like manly and rough, and Caitlin Clark is just kind of a peaches and cream Midwestern chick who can shoot threes. She doesn't fit the profile, and they don't like her. They don't like that she's getting attention. But let me tell you a quick story. When I was at a much younger guy, there was a greyhound. Champion greyhound named after me, Keefer. I've got his bobblehead right over here on my shelf.
Nice.
Keefer was an absolute dynamo. He won so many races in a row. People at St. Petersburg, the biggest track in the country at the time, were coming out in droves every time he ran, Tony. He won 15 races in a row. He won 2 big stakes races. I mean, people, hey, I can show it to you. I've got I saw Keefer run t-shirt from Derby Lane. I mean, the dog was, they were bringing him on the morning shows. I mean, he was a sensation in St. Petersburg, not because he was named Keefer, but he was phenomenal. But of course, I rode that gravy train like crazy.
Sure.
I was mentioned on the front page story in the Wall Street Journal, for God's sake, when I was like 25 years old, just because I was his namesake. But when he finally lost, we were walking out after the race, and I heard a girl behind me saying, "Finally, thank God he lost. I am so sick of all this hype with Keefer." And I just couldn't contain myself. I said, "Have you looked in the stands? Have you looked at how many hundreds of thousands of people have come here to watch this dog run? And do you know how much money that correlates for your kennel when you win any kind of race during the week? And you're saying you're glad he lost? Are you insane?" That's how I feel about a Tiger Woods or a Caitlin Clark taking things by storm. They're so resented that people just cut off their own nose because the jealousy and the ridiculous attitudes of people is really petty and sad. It's hard to defend.
And to play along with that, Brittany Griner, she goes over to Russia. She's got some smoker stuff in her bag. What happens? They put her in prison. They bring her back. And I don't think I heard the words Brittany Griner since Caitlin Clark came into the league.
Yeah,
And she was supposed to be the WNBA, the face of the WNBA, her and her wife, and they were supposed to be it. And she doesn't look like Caitlin Clark. She doesn't play like Caitlin Clark.
No.
And Caitlin Clark don't get in trouble like Brittany Griner does. And maybe we've got a new face of the WNBA. And I'm going to be really surprised.
we don't. I know you're just like me. I don't resent their lifestyles. Knock yourself out. It's your time. You do what you want. But don't resent somebody for being different because they're not going to be conforming to what you think is the standard for your enterprise. Caitlin Clark has earned her respect for her performance and what she believes should not come into play, and she shouldn't be getting knocked on the floor with hard fouls and all this intimidation crap. And to her credit, Tony, she hasn't whined and complained. She just shows up and does her job, and so good for her.
I forget what the percentages were. I want to say it was like 118%. I don't know if those were the numbers on television. I don't know if those were seats sold. I don't know if that was money. I'm not sure where but it went from 6%, 3%, 2%, 6%, 5%, 118% in 1 year.
Wow!
And it had to do everything with her. And I'll find some of those numbers. I mean, and this league's been around for a long time.
It has.
I mean, this is a one-time deal where it just shot through, and I'm going to be really interested to see what happens next year. I want to know what's going to happen next year. Are people going to come back? Is the shine rolled off a little bit? It was kind of like when UConn had won 30 something in a row or whatever, or 90 in a row or whatever, and people actually started watching the games because they were watching to see if they were going to lose.
Yeah, the Indiana Fever were the worst team by far in the league. They made the playoffs this year.
They did.
With that one addition. So that's the kind of impact she had. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't pay attention to WNBA. I remember there was a sitcom, How I Met My Mother, way back in the day, where one of the characters of the show was dating a girl for the WNBA, and they go to a game and there's like just 3 or 4 people sitting around them, and he goes, "Hey, stop." Some guys yelling about the girls. Some girls ever goes, these girls out there busting their ass for hundreds of fans every night, making thousands of dollars. And, so yeah, the WNBA has had kind of an inglorious past, and the NBA has subsidized it. And I'm glad these girls have a place to go play. But let's take it for what it is. But when you get a Caitlin Clark or Tiger Woods or somebody that comes and changes the culture and changes the perception, let's not resent them. Let's celebrate them because they are truly special individuals.
The more sports we have on TV, the better. Hey, guys, so speaking of sports on TV, ABC 3340 will do it again coming up on this Saturday morning from 10:30 to 11 o'clock. It'll butt up against the SEC game of the week. I guess those games will be changing.
We'll have to look. Army Navy plays this week, which is interesting. Yep. Had Army not played Notre Dame and been in the playoffs, they still would have had a regular season game to play against Navy. That was interesting scheduling. I don't know what minor bowls may already be on the horizon. We might have to get creative on this week's show and find some things to talk about kind of a season perspective and looking ahead to the playoffs, because this is the first weekend we're going to be on where the games aren't until the following weekend. So it's going to be interesting.
Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech. Are you in on that, on the Birmingham Bowl?
Yeah, I saw that. And, that's a good matchup. I mean, Tech, by the end of the year, they took Georgia, who just beat Texas for the second time. Let's not underestimate. Tech took them to 8 overtimes in Athens before losing that game. And Tech really is the team that knocked Miami out of the playoffs as well, although the coup de grace was the Syracuse loss. But Georgia Tech comes in a very highly thought of football team right now. And what Vandy did this year was phenomenal.
Amazing, yeah.
They end up 6-6. They were 6-3 at one point. They lost their last couple games, but Diego Pavia is worth the price of admission just to go see this kid.
And he's smart too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was 5'0". Nobody recruited him. He believed in himself. He went to New Mexico Tech first, then New Mexico State. Got to go to Vanderbilt, and he made waves. Guess who he beat, Tony? Who's sitting at home now? The Alabama Crimson Tide.
I know. How about that? Isn't that crazy?
Our man, the legend, hadn't gotten over it yet. We lost to Vanderbilt.
I know it. Wait till you see him on Saturday mornings. We may have to cut him back a little bit.
I'm so he had me in the Legend Cave in last week's show. He goes, Kipper, please promise me we're going to be dancing. I said, you're going to be dancing. I lied to him. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I did equip him with the doomsday scenario, and that's exactly what played out.
Well, Kalen DeBoer coming out and saying, we're really looking forward to what bowl game we're going to be playing on December 31st. And I'm kind of like, oh gosh. I mean, that's just, that used to be something special, but that is not going to do for Alabama Crimson Tide fans.
Now the drama is Jalen Milroe and all the regular Alabama guys going to play now, or are they going to go ahead and start preparing for the draft? Milroe has another year of eligibility, but not going to the playoffs probably doesn't enhance the chances of him coming back.
Check out our show, Kip Keefer, Tony Curry, the Keefer and Curry Show. Also, Need to Know right here on Tony Curry Radio, and of course, ABC 3340 is the starting lineup again on Saturday morning, 10:30. We'll see you then, brother. Take care of yourself.
Tony Curry, thank you very much.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.